Welcome to Health System CIO's interview with Caroline Peika, Director for Integration and Analytics with Rady Children's Health. I'm Anthony Guerra, Founder and Editor-in-Chief. Caroline, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Anthony.
All right, great. Looking forward to chatting with you. You're going to be speaking at the Chime Fall Forum next week, coming up very
Uh,
soon. Your session is titled "Reimagining Pediatric Care: A Cloud-First Model for Scalable Innovation." So, looking forward to having a fun chat about that. But let's start off. If you want to tell me a little bit about your organization and your role.
Definitely. So, Rady Children's Health is a pediatrics hospital and clinic system. We just merged CHOC, which is the Children's Hospital of the OC, with Rady's Children. So, we're now one entity. And my role is the Director of Integration and Analytics, and I oversee everything that has to do with data. So, the whole life cycle from device to analytics and even Gen AI.
Oh, very cool. Data, a lot of fun.
Yes.
Everyone who's messing around with AI, which is everybody, they're coming across data issues, right? Because it's got to operate on the data. And if the data is not tight or the data is not right, or the data is not uniform, there's a lot of issues there. Any thoughts on that in general? Is that a process everyone's going through? Is it forcing people to go back and do more data work?
100% forcing people to do data work. So at Rady's, we have two initiatives that really tackled this at the source. So the first one was creating our new data platform, which is a modernized platform in the cloud. So by building this new data platform, we were able to instill the best practices related to data ingestion and data quality throughout the pipelines and transformations and even the data products that we've built so far. So it's really changing how we're doing it technically, but also philosophically. So through that process, we really leaned into the concept of data stewards, of having our committees talking about the data definitions, being aware of data quality, and so on. And the second initiative that we're working on is our GenAI chatbot, private chatbot. And we were building RAG models, and the data quality really came to life when we looked into internal documents and seeing how many were expired or maybe not up to par. So that really triggered a lot of conversations with our stakeholders on how best to store the most recent information and keep it recent, keep it of quality as well. So that's another project that we're just starting of like instilling best practices
Hmm.
of storing documentation in a way that is of quality for sure.
Yeah, very interesting. So the second initiative you mentioned, it's a chatbot. Um, it's to help people interact with bodies of data, and in this case, it's policies and all kinds of internal stuff, right?
Exactly.
So instead of people having to root around and sort of figure their way through these things or make a call, contact from someone from HR, is it kind of to give them a chat GPT like experience of querying, the bot, and more of a conversational, and instead of, what we're all tired of from Google. So now Google was everything, right? And it was,
Yes.
tell me something, I need some information. And it was, well, here's 7, 8, 50, 30 possible sources of information.
Mhm.
Now, instead of that, we have ChatGPT. You say, "Tell me some info." It gives you the info. Gives you the answer. That's what we all want. What a better experience! Instead of telling me, "Here's some areas you can go look," it's, "Here's
Yeah.
the answer." So it's a much more pleasant experience. You're trying to replicate that for different bodies of data. Is that correct?
Exactly. And what is really fundamental to doing this is two items. The first one is being able to reference the documentation. So what we've developed is a way to really go to the document exactly where this information was taken from or was interpreted from. So one being sure that we have access to the source. So if there's some conversation afterwards about whatever you've found, you have a source to refer to. But the second part of it is ongoing validation. This is Gen AI. You have to be mindful of it's evolving or not answering correctly. So we have a tight validation process that we've put into place to make sure that people feel comfortable asking those questions, but also comfortable leveraging the answers.
So, a couple of questions. First question is to your point earlier about the data being clean, you can have a
Mhm.
great chatbot that is providing a wonderfully conversational interaction. But if the underlying documents are sort of expired or no longer relevant, it's doing its job, it's providing an answer, but that answer isn't the right answer because there was an expired document that it was referencing. So that's
Mhm.
what you're talking about, right? Everything's got to be clean that it is searching and indexing and using to provide answers. And that's a lot of work.
Yes, and it's a lot of work not on me. So it's a lot of work on the stakeholders, right? So we looped in the business stakeholders to actually be part of the project and realize, what was going on with the documentation that they provide people and made accessible. So as they're validating the answers, they're validating what the chatbot comes to with regards to the answers and the sources it's using, and they figure out like their own insights of like what they should be doing going forward or what's going on with their documents. So it's a lot of their work to see what's going on. And to be fair, without the chatbot, it's the same situation. People were using these documents, some of them were
Right,
not okay, right?
right,
So it's just a mirror, not a mirror, but a door opening a bit wider on
right.
maybe processes that were lacking, or you know things to improve.
In the case you're sort of referencing here, would it be HR would be the main group of users that would be cleaning up the source documents in the case we're talking about here?
So if it were like HR benefits, it would
Right,
be the HR benefits
right.
team. If it's like security policies, it would be the
Ah,
security team. If
okay.
it's like clinical surgery policies, it could be
Ah.
that specific team. So it kind of narrows down with regards to the focus.
So you must be having these must be quite interesting conversations because
Yes.
essentially they're getting a mandate to do a whole bunch of work. So you're approaching these units, operational units, and saying, "Hey, we want to build a chat in us over in data. We're in data. We want to build a chat bot to help people interact with your unit. And here's what we want them to be able to do. Now, here's what we need you to do, right?
Mhm.
We need you to clean up all this stuff. So, are those interesting conversations where you get sort of like, hey, we're busy with our day jobs. This sounds like a lot of work. This sounds like a data problem, not a user problem. I mean, I'm just looking for the dynamics here. And it's always to try
Yes.
and help other people who are going to have these conversations.
Yes. We identified use cases where there was plus value for the end users. And we are very transparent on how much or how little time we need of them to be able to validate in some cases. So we're really transparent, and then we get their buy-in, right? So if people are really not into it, we're not going to force ourselves. There's enough
Hmm.
use cases to go
Hmm.
around. But in the case, for instance, of HR, for instance, it was all about, okay, what's in it for them? Like if people can self-serve like this, that means
Mm,
there's less emails to answer,
right,
right? All of this kind of being disrupted throughout the day to answer all these emails is no longer right, or it's very minimal. You have a lot of
right.
more people aware. You need less sessions with people to explain things. So there was a high benefit for them to do this. For others, you have to figure out what the benefit is and whether or not it's appealing to them to invest some time, because we're all busy, right?
Yeah, that's a great answer, and it makes perfect sense. It in so many areas, it's finding out the benefit to the person you're trying to get to do the thing, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
How do you get them to see the upside? That makes everything a lot easier. So that makes perfect sense. Um, these companies that build these things in order to be able to scan the world's knowledge are very, very large, right?
Hmm.
The big Gen AI chatbots, ChatGPT, they're enormous. and
Mhm.
the amount of resources that go into these things is incredible. And I guess that's
Mhm.
because the size of the data that you can access or that they're using. So, how can health systems do it? How do you have the bandwidth, or is it just because the body of data that you're trying to curate is so much smaller, so it's not as hard?
Um, I think, well, the body of data is very diverse, right? So I think, going back to the chat GPT of this world, you have the internet. So I see it as like one big source, the
Mhm.
internet. If
Right.
we look at like our clinical setup, there's all these silos of information. So every time you're doing this project, it's kind of starting from scratch and building, something different. So it feels a lot more work to kind of grapple all these different data sources that are very of quality that is variant, and of complexity as well that is variant as well, and user bases as well, because not everybody should be necessarily accessing a specific knowledge base, for instance.
Right.
So I think from that point of view, it's a balance between what do you want to tackle internally and how many data sources does that mean, but also what are the features you want to build in your chatbot, right? You're never, as you said, we're never going to be chat gpt. They have new features every 2 seconds that
Right.
take many developers to do. So what are the focused features that you want to put in your chatbot? In our case, it was all about making sure we can ask questions, making sure we can upload files, making sure there's a feedback loop so people can let us know whether or not
Mhm.
they are having a good experience or bad experience with the chatbot, and having other features like sourcing the rag models, or just having a conversation pinned and renamed. So you have
Mhm.
to like make sure people don't expect that your chat gpt you will never
Yeah.
be. We are not a
Right.
billion dollar development team, but we can definitely give the focused set of features and a lot more capabilities with our knowledge bases.
So they shouldn't expect it to feel the same as a Chat GPT discussion.
I mean, it ours does feel the same.
Okay.
It's just that not everything's there, right? So
Right.
for instance, like the voice to text, we don't have this yet, or we don't
Mhm.
have this.
Mhm.
So, don't expect everything to be there, but the rest feels and looks the same.
Okay. What's your advice for other organizations when we talk about sounds like you're building stuff, right? You're
Yes.
building. So, and then the other side is a buy. And I would imagine if you don't have the expertise in house, you're of a certain size, meaning not that big,
Mhm.
you're gonna buy,
Mhm.
or do something else. So where do you see sort of that cutoff in that decision process on buy versus build? And what's your advice to people that are trying to figure that out? Like, do we do this ourselves? Do we have the bandwidth, or do we try and replicate this in another way?
That's a great question. I think it's really understanding what buy means in this specific, scenario, right? If you buy something, you'll always need to maintain these models. You'll always need to validate them. You'll always need to add to them. So if you're not, it's not the one and done kind of thing like, software. So whether you buy or you build, there is some build ongoing forever. So, do you have people to do this regardless of it being bought? Or will you have money to have services to do this going on? So, I think that's really the question. Do you want to do it from scratch and maintain from scratch? Or do you want to buy and then maintain and evolve as you go? So, I think regardless you'll need developers or a developer to be in the loop. So I think it's a change of mentality for or a healthcare organization of like you'll have to have developers, like you'll
Right.
have to figure this out.
Yeah. Or you just keep things the way they were,
Yeah,
right? You
or
just
you
don't
don't
go
go
down
there.
this road.
You
Yeah.
don't go down this road, and I don't know how you're gonna maintain things in the future. I don't know.
That that's interesting, right? The stakes get higher and higher, right? And that's why you have mergers.
100%.
You have mergers because it's harder to sustain. The smaller you are, the harder to sustain. That's been going on in healthcare forever,
For
right?
sure.
It continues
For
to
sure.
up the bar. So,
But a
Very
lot of,
Go ahead.
like there's specific buys that you can have, like transcribers or like, AI, specific functionalities that make sense. But if you want
Mhm,
something that's very generic, that has all these features on top of it, then that's another
mhm.
question.
Okay, very good. So your session talks a lot about innovation and cloud.
Mhm.
Um, so let's talk a little bit about cloud, a cloud first model. What in your mind does the cloud allow you to do that on-prem does not?
Um, well, the first one is, you know, a, a lot more governance, I would say, with regards to the data, because it's one governed cloud place. I would say that's how we've built it at Rady's, where we're really strict on how we bring things to the cloud, how we document things to the cloud, how we maintain things to the cloud, and the cloud partners have really strict security and HIPAA compliant architectures that we can follow. So we feel very secure within the cloud ecosystem and also very organized in the cloud ecosystem. So that's kind of one part of it. The second part of it is, that scalability, right? A lot of what we want to do is data science. It's these cool things that we want to be doing for the business that requires us to be able to leverage different types of resources for data science or and such. And up to now, like having that infrastructure takes weeks and weeks. So for us, the cloud is saving time. Pediatrics, like seconds count, right? Between a clinician waiting for data to load and or getting extracts from whatever system, it's really impacting the care that we're giving our patients, right? They're waiting for those seconds. They're waiting for the next step. In the cloud, you can make that go away, right? You build better systems, you build real-time applications and a scalability that allows you to be more instant. And finally, it's all about making sure that um, you know data is accessible, right? When it's in the cloud, whether you're a clinician in the hospital or a person at home doing data science or a finance manager like downtown, you all have access to the same governed data and it's in the cloud. So a lot of opportunity for us to be better, be faster, provide care faster, provide innovation to care faster, is really why we're going into the cloud, basically.
Yeah, so tell me if this is a good analogy. As you were talking, I was thinking that, the fact of getting it into the cloud, you have to sort of organize it to put it in the cloud. So it's
Yes.
almost like you've got a bunch of rooms in a house where everything's messy, and you're saying,
Yep.
"Listen, we're gonna move. We're gonna move to a new house, but we're gonna do it in a very organized way, and everything we put in this new house is gonna be organized and set up right so we can find things." So in the moving, there's a cleansing.
Yep.
That's
Exactly.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, and a rethinking of use cases. A lot of what happened to us was, oh, all these things we couldn't do, now we can do. So
Mm,
it was like rethinking how we were architecting our data, because now we these use cases we were no longer thinking about came back
mm.
to life. So we had
Right.
to make sure we were ready for them.
So two things that come up as a couple things that come up with concerns in moving to the cloud. One
Mhm.
is cost concerns, that you could sort of things can get out of control if there isn't governance around things. People can just spin things up and sort of leave things running, and everyone's having a lot of fun and trying things out, and all of a sudden you get the bill. So there can be that kind of dynamic. Number one, does that make sense? And number two, what are you trying to do to make sure that doesn't happen?
Yes, it totally makes sense, and that's exactly the opposite of how we built it. So we definitely partnered with our cloud provider and cloud vendors to make sure that we restrict those accesses to the least amount of people, right? So we spent a lot of time architecting just the security and the access of our platform, whether it's the usage access or the data access, etc. And that was really a partnership with our vendors to make sure that these things would not occur. And then a partnership with the business to basically let them know that we're not giving them access to you know, put a 3x on their compute, right? So his education of the business and making sure they knew this was not going to happen. There's going to be a process if this is
Right.
needed. And
Right.
then making sure that our partners helped us setting things up. But we also work hard on our end to be mindful of how do you forecast compute costs? How do you
Okay.
forecast just cloud costs, which
Right.
is something, you know, I've been doing prior to my work at Rady's to make sure that as we onboard new data sources or new projects, we know in advance how much it's going to cost, not necessarily just then, but in the long term as well. So you're prepared and you're not surprised.
Excellent. We're almost out of time. I'm just going to ask you one more question, then I'm going to let you go. Again, about cloud. So one of the upsides people talk about with cloud is the business continuity, disaster recovery concept. Things are in the cloud. They're not here. If there's some sort of hurricane, fire, natural disaster here, the information is safe. But that requires internet availability, right? We lose the
Yes.
internet, we lose everything in the cloud. So to me, it's almost like a double-edged sword. Depending on which scenario you're spinning up, it's either saving you or it's putting you in big trouble. How
Mhm.
are you guys thinking about the cloud in terms of availability?
That's a good question. It is outside of my realm, so I'm gonna
Okay.
hypothesis here, but I would imagine that our peoples are thinking about this
Uh-huh.
and may have. I think how we see this is, as you said, the internet. If the internet goes down, I think we have a solution for the internet. So if
Right.
our provider goes down, we have another
Yeah, yeah,
provider. So
backup.
it's less about the
Right.
cloud itself. Our cloud does have, you know, archiving and duplication. I don't know how to say this, but it
Mhm.
has like versions of our stuff in multiple
Right,
versions.
right,
So that's secure, but that
right,
internet, I believe we have, you know, a backup
yeah.
provider in case.
All right, that sounds good. Listen, Carolyn, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Sounds like you're doing a lot of fun stuff over there. So keep at it. I'm sure you will, and I'll see you at the conference. So thanks for catching up.
Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate it.